Welcome back, everyone. This is our Spain Masterclass, and I'm still Andy Bridge. So we've had a couple of good sessions already this morning with Alison from Mortgage Matters discussing Spanish mortgage availability, and then with Sun Lawyers and my lawyer in Spain with Jose Maria and Alex discussing the legal process of buying a property in Spain. So let's look at the other main protagonists in the drama of buying a property in Spain. You have, in short and in general, you have a lawyer who you pay to help you buy the property, and typically you have an estate agent who's there to sell you a property. And we have got 4 estate agents with us this morning. Always good to see the estate agents in their natural habitat in the wild. Here they are prowling around the Costa Blanca. And let me introduce them to you right away. I think you're all in the Costa Blanca, but let's come on to that. Sophie Rodriguez.
Hi there. Morning, everyone. I'm Sophie from Casas Manuel, and we're based on the Costa Blanca South.
Okay, thank you, Sophie. David, you're in the UK at the moment, in the Midlands, is that right?
Right in the Midlands, in the middle of UK, yes.
Okay, and where do you have your offices?
Our main office is the head office here, and our showrooms and all our sales teams are based in Costa Blanca and in Murcia.
Okay, thank you, David. And Alan, where are you today?
Hi everyone, I'm in Costa Blanca South too, in La Zenia, near the border of Murcia, so we cover sort of Costa Blanca and Murcia region.
Okay, and Carsten Ryder from Vincent's.
Yes, good morning everybody, thanks for coming along. I'm from Vincent Real Estate. We're based in a village called Benihoffer, which is Costa Blanca South, around 15 minutes drive in from the blue flag beaches of the Costa Blanca South.
Okay, that's great. So we've got Casas Manuel, we've got Landmark International, we've got 247 Casas or Easy Ads with Alan, and we've got Vincent's. And all of these guys have an exhibitor page over on the Meet Our Exhibitors section on the website here, and you can go over there and there is availability for booking meetings with them should you want to take things further. I think they've all got virtual property tours on their pages. There's a question box, a message box. So head over there, not right now, let's see what they've got to say first, but head over there later on if you want to make further contact with them. Okay, Sophie, tell us a little bit about your business and I guess the typical profile of a buyer that you deal with. Where do they come from? How do they find you? How do they get in touch with you?
Okay, so we've been here on the Costa Blanca for almost 20 years when my parents relocated from Liverpool. So we've been through the whole process as well as a family, and also, with children, and then living the life here. We tend to get a lot of our British clients from coming over, doing the exhibitions, and we tend to get them right at the beginning when they've got lots and lots of questions. How does it all work? How do they find the right areas for them? And it can be quite a long process. You have to sit down with everybody, listen to them, find out what they want to get from this move, not just the type of property that they want to find. So that's what we tend to do. And then we just build our relationship up over time. And once they're ready, they come on out and we show them about.
Yeah, of course, you guys would all normally be at our exhibition in Birmingham. It was scheduled for next weekend. So it'll all be the final preparations now for getting over to Birmingham and building our stand. So this is what we're doing virtually instead. Carsten, how do you go about, I guess, in your terminology, it would be qualifying a buyer to find out what they think they want and actually what they might really want?
Well, very similar to Sophie. Basically speaking, the qualification process is asking the questions as to what do you want to do in Spain? What is your budget? What do you wish to achieve? Are you a beach person? Basically just finding out about them first at the initial stages, and then little by little feeding the information to them about the processes of buying in Spain. Buying a house anywhere in the world is a traumatic time for most people and emotional, especially considering it might be a different kind of process for them here in Spain than it would be for them in the UK. So bit by bit, we feed the information to the clients about the various aspects, and then hopefully all that information is stored, and then find the property for them.
And I guess, Alan, you're doing typically you're doing a lot more for the client than a UK estate agent, because there's so many more unknowns for them. Just kind of run us through the services you offer. I know it'd be the same for the other guys here as well, but what does an overseas property estate agent or an agent in Spain offer a British buyer in terms of the services?
Well, it's quite comprehensive because it's really about holding the hand all through the process. So it really starts with the initial conversation and obviously getting to know your client. Obviously, all the things the guys just mentioned, very important. We then move on to things like working with a dedicated sales executive that's experienced, that knows the area, knows the product. We do extensive property searches to match the profile of what the client's looking for, which is really important. We don't want to waste time for anybody, including us. We look at things like foreign currency exchange. We look at finance. Obviously, we help with translation. We look at all the documentation that's required. Things like you mentioned the seminar earlier you had with the NIE number, which is a tax identification number, power of attorney, conveyancing, tax returns, even through to rental management. So we do a huge amount for clients compared to a UK agent, because obviously when you're in the UK and you're buying something in Spain, you're not necessarily clued up on all the processes and systems you need to go through. So it's our job to explain those and plug you into the right professionals to take you from start to finish. So it's a whole process. It's not only about before, it's about during, it's also about after. It's not just about finding your property and then saying goodbye. You know, our ethos, and I think the same with the other guys, is very much we want a client for life. So we want clients to keep coming back to us and asking us questions about things. And we have those professionals and people around us to help them.
Yeah, that's a good point. So just to clarify, when you talk about power of attorney and those legal issues, that's you kind of putting somebody in touch with a lawyer who will act for their interest, rather than something that you're doing in house.
Yeah, well, we sort of do it in house because we have our own legal and fiscal business, which is a standalone business with qualified lawyers and accountants. So we actually do that as part of our organisation. But a power of attorney is a very interesting one, because when someone comes over and finds a property they like, if they do a power of attorney in Spain at the time, it might cost them a couple of €100. And what that does is that means that the power of attorney can actually go and set up a bank account. They can sign at the notary. They can do all the things that would save a client necessarily having to come back and take time off work, obviously accommodation, flights, etc. And it takes all the stress out of it too. So basically what happens, a lot of our clients, when they do a power of attorney, once we find the property and they reserve it, the next time they come back, we've done the whole process for them, and they can just come back and we give them the keys.
Okay, and I know it's sometimes a bit of a contentious issue, because in the magazine we bang on about independent legal advice, but we also recognise that, you know, if you're dealing with lots of people who are coming over and buying in Spain, say David, then you have relationships. You know local law firms who are kind of best placed to act. You know, some specialise in this sort of thing and some don't.
Yes, we've got a number of people that we utilise in Spain. We've been working with for nearly 17 years. And so some clients will come already prepared, and they will have already met clients, solicitors and lawyers. Those that haven't, we will give them a list of people that we would recommend them to go and talk to, whether it is a solicitor or an accountant, or to open a bank account and all those things. But Alan touched on something interesting earlier on when he was talking about the meeting part with clients. Is that initial meeting is very important when you first make contact with them. And in the current climate, we're quite lucky, I think, that we've got our sales teams based in Spain, but here based in the UK, we're having clients tell us they quite like the idea that in the current circumstances, they can't fly out, but they can come and see us. They can meet us face to face here. We're in the centre of the country, so we get across all the problems and deal with all the concerns that they have, which we can't probably do on an ordinary thing. We're here to talk to them. They come and visit us. And if those people are a little bit further away from our showroom, we'll offer to go and meet them. We know that from the shows that we do with The Place in the Sun, that people are prepared to travel. So in this particular time, they can come and have this face-to-face meeting. We can deal with all their questions, their queries, and they do have a lot of concerns about, as Alan was saying, it's a big step for a lot of people. We can hopefully put those fears behind them. So when they step on the plane and they arrive there, we've already got a good relationship with them moving forward. And that's, at the moment, that's quite important, I think, definitely.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say, Sophie, that in a way that this event, this virtual event throughout September is innovative in some ways. We've not done it all before. You're as being innovative as an estate agent. Virtual property tours, is that something that's working for you and your clients at the moment?
Yeah, you know, we had a lot of people who were booked to come out in August, and obviously with the quarantine that's come into play, you know, a lot of them have been very disappointed, and they do still want to buy. So what we've been doing is we've been going and doing video tours of the properties, sending them back to them, and even doing live calls in the properties themselves, so that they can, you know, get a good feeling for the property and of the surrounding area. And we have done quite a few sales using this new method.
Okay, so people are responding positively to that, are they?
Yeah, definitely. You know, Spain is still very popular, and I think with the whole corona situation, you know, it's really made people think about what they want to do, and a lot of people are turning around and saying, we don't want to wait any longer, we want to make this happen now while we know we can. So, okay, they can't get over in person, but they are thinking, let's just do what we can, and if we feel the property's right for us, we're going to go ahead.
Okay, a question in here from Mark Saunders. It is good to cover what we might think of as the basics, but they are very fundamental basics and terribly important for people. Mark asks about, are all properties checked? Well, that's something, Caster, that you would get your lawyer to do, I guess, in the main. Is that right?
Well, it's pretty much the buyer that actually gets the lawyer to check that on their behalf. However, yeah, as a company, before we actually take a property on the books to list it and to advertise it on the website, we ensure that through accumulation of paperwork from the person, as in from the seller, that they are indeed the person that's entitled to sell the property and not just a family member, i.e. There's no point the brother of somebody saying their property is advertised for sale and they don't even own it. There's no permission from the seller to sell it. So the process starts with us, whereby we collate the paperwork and ensure that it is saleable and that certificates, as far as possible, are already in place before we market it. Then when it's sold, the buyer instructs a solicitor, then the solicitor does a backup check on the paperwork right to the very last day upon notary to ensure that all the paperwork is still intact and that they can go ahead with buying a property that's debt-free and that is meant to be on the land that it's meant to be built on.
Chris Blythe asks a very direct question. Who pays you, the buyer or the seller?
Sorry, I missed a bit of that there. Sorry, Andy.
Chris Blythe was asking, who pays you? Is it the buyer or the seller?
Well, we wouldn't mind both parties actually paying us, to be honest with you. The commission is actually billed to the seller. So the buyer doesn't actually pay the commission. Okay,
Alan, you want to comment on that?
That's the case in our region, but it does vary across different parts of Spain. So, for example, in Valencia and Murcia region, there's a fee charged to the buyer and a separate fee charged to the seller, which could be anywhere between 1% to 3% on each party. That depends on the value of the property. The same with taxes as well on purchase, by the way. So every region is different on the purchase tax. And also,
we ran through some of the legal side of it earlier, and I think ballpark, depending on which region you're in Spain, somewhere between 9 and 10%, up to 15%, if you take in legal fees and the equivalent of stamp duty. Would that be? I know it's quite a range there, Alan, but would that be a fair kind of ballpark?
I've actually got the taxes in front of me. It ranges from 4 to 10% on purchase tax. But obviously in new build tax, there's an additional anywhere between 0.5% and 1.5%, depending on the region. However, new build tax across the whole of Spain is 10% in every single region.
And then you have legal fees and associated disbursements.
Typically, between €3,000 and €3,500, that will cover your conveyancing, your notary, your land registry fees. That's a rough rule of thumb. Obviously, it does vary a bit depending on the price of the property, but between 3,000 and 3,500 is an average sort of cost for the on-top fees.
Okay, and Sophie, what about post-purchase? I guess somebody buying a place in Spain, they buy it, they're happy with that, but maybe they then go back to the UK. Do you get involved in stuff after the purchase has been completed?
Yeah, we very much stay in touch with our clients. Once they've got the deeds and the keys to the new property, it doesn't really end there. A lot of people are moving to a totally new country that they've never lived in before. They need to find a lot of things out. People who've got children, how do they go about finding schools? How do they go about enrolling in schools? A lot of people have hobbies that they want to continue over here. How do they do that? They want to check up about the taxes each year. Are the bank accounts set up with direct debits? So, we do stay in touch with our clients for a long time after they've got the keys. And really, we can see clients coming backwards and forwards for years after, can you recommend this? Can you recommend that? That's the great thing with us living here and experiencing the relocation process ourselves.
Okay, thanks, Sophie. And David, given the restrictions at the moment on getting out there, what do you think? What would your advice be to a potential buyer as to what they could do during this month? How can they? When do your eyes light up at what we term a ready buyer? What do you like to see in place? What considerations do you like to see that the buyer has taken into account?
I think it's all to do with that first initial meeting. You get a real good feel straight away as to what the buyer wants and how quickly they're prepared to try to react to that. At the moment, of course, it's this lockdown and this quarantine is causing all us agents a problem, and nobody's really going to jump on a plane for 3 or 4 days to look at property and then have to quarantine for 14. But these meetings that you've put together are invaluable, and luckily for us, people can come and see us face to face, which is again fortunate for us. But I think there's a lot of people, and we had this in the meeting yesterday, that one thing COVID has done, amongst all the bad things that it's done, it has focused people's minds on what they really want to do. Because a lot of people, year after year, saying, "Oh, I'll do it next year, I'll get round to it." This has really focused their minds to think, now is the time. When I can get out there, I want to go and buy property. I want to go and see what I can get for my money. And I think when we get a clear understanding of how we can get people out and get them back without the problems, I think it'll be really, very buoyant for the whole marketplace, for all of us, which will be good.
Yeah,
and for the
absolutely.
buyers. And for the buyers.
And Carsten, what sort of questions do you put to somebody to really probe as to their readiness? Obviously, you want to understand how they're going to pay for it and how they can afford it. What key things do they need to have taken into account?
Why do you want to be here? That's one big question that we ask a client. Why do you want to be here? What are your goals, aspirations? Is it for you? Is it for your extended family? That's all encompassed within the same kind of question, so that we can gauge the size of property that they may need and whether or not then that budget fits the size of the property that they might need because they've got X number of grandchildren or whatever visiting. There's lots of things that we can ask a client, but generally speaking, we ask as many questions from the client as they would ask us about what the processes are. So it's quite a good equal relationship. We've got the information to give them to help them go forward.
And typically, do you find people are cash buyers? Are they looking for mortgages? Do they need to sell a UK property? Obviously, there's a big difference between buying a holiday home cost and relocating. But the British buyers that you deal with, are they in the main looking for funding, or are they cash buyers?
In the main, they are cash buyers. As far as the British market is concerned, there's not that many that we would deal with over the last 22 years. I go for maybe maximum about 20% would require a mortgage. The rest are cash buyers. Now, a cash buyer, obviously, here in Spain is when the cash is here and available from the bank in Spain that they deposited in. That doesn't mean that the client hasn't should we say, remortgaged a property in the UK and then put it in the Spanish bank, they're still then classed as a cash buyer as far as we're concerned here in Spain.
Okay. And Alan, I guess you're still doing viewings. We have a question in from somebody saying, I'm flying out in 10 days. Are agents still doing viewings? I guess if people are prepared to travel, then you're prepared to do them, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a team, quite a large team that cover the whole of the Costa Blanca and whole of the Murcia region and further afield if required. And we're actually a national agency as well. So we're now in Barcelona, and Valencia, and Alicante, Granada, Zaragoza. So we will accommodate clients if they can get over. Absolutely, no problem.
And that was from Mark Dorks. Thank you for your question, Mark. Samantha Hyde, Sophie, asks, how difficult do you think it will be to buy after Brexit? I mean, clearly Brexit is a huge issue, but you're still going to be able to buy a property in Spain, aren't you?
Yeah. Hi, Samantha. You know, Brexit is the unknown right now, isn't it? Everybody's wondering what will happen after the 31st of December, but we're not worried. We're not too worried about it. People bought here before the EU existed, and I don't see why they won't continue to buy. You know, the Spanish know that they make a lot of money by people coming over here on holiday, buying properties, and that's something that I don't think they'll make too difficult for us.
Okay, thank you, Sophie. Here's an interesting one. Is it best to find a property online and then contact the estate agent, or start with an estate agent and let them find you suitable properties? Now, each of you is going to say, just contact me and I'll sort it all out for you. What would you'd certainly say that, David. What comment would you have for Andy Hughes?
I would certainly say that, but I think irrespective of what I say, we know that people are going to be trawling the web all the time, looking at things, picking up. It's very much a question of looking at something that is attractive and looking at, does it fit their budget? And then, as from what we do with you guys, Placing the Sun, a lot of inquiries come from you, with people who've looked online, picked out a number of properties, then they contact us, and then we're able to obviously offer them others. But yes, I mean, I think people must be day in and day out going online, just looking at properties. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that can become a bit of a minefield. So when you think you've looked at one or two that you think you like, then please contact us, and then we'll steer you and send you a number of properties, hopefully you'll like. And if you don't, we'll send you another selection. But we're not going to bombard you with hundreds of properties. We're probably going to send you 8 to 10 at a time for you to have a look at, see if they think that they fit your profile. And we'll just keep doing that until we found enough properties that hopefully, when time permits, you can get out and have a look at them, as well as the others that you've selected yourselves.
And Alan, just give a bit of sort of industry insights. I mean, if you had somebody contact you about a specific property that you were listing, and then they didn't like it, if they then identified one from another agent, you'd be keen to introduce them to that agent and kind of work with them?
Yeah, I mean, the Spanish market's unique in that respect. Obviously, in the UK, agencies are all independent. They don't collaborate with each other. In Spain, a lot of the agencies collaborate. In fact, everyone on this panel, we all work with each other. So, you know, we can show properties to buyers that we have, and vice versa. So my caveat would be in relation to searching online, which is obviously a great place. You know, everyone that's associated with a Place in the Sun, we're all tried and tested professionals that have been doing this for many years. But there are a lot of agencies out there that leave properties on that are sold, or they're over, you know, they're priced 2 or 3 years ago to get inquiries. So it can be a bit of a minefield. My advice would be stick with 1 or 2 agencies, let them do all the legwork, let them do all the research, let them find out whether the property's for sale or not. Because that way you can take a huge amount of stress and time and effort away from it by letting us professionals do it for you.
Okay, thanks, Alan. We're getting close to running out of time. Just to tell everybody, we're all going to be back here at 3:30. Everybody who's taken part as a panelist in our sessions today will join at 3:30, and we'll answer any outstanding questions and informal chat. We didn't actually get onto pricing and impact of COVID and everything on pricing, which is a big issue. Why don't you come back at 3:30 and ask these guys this question? Bill asks about narrowing down a search from an area to a particular location. That was something we covered in Tuesday's session, on Wednesday's session, Thursday's session on our 6 steps to purchase. So let me just show you where you can find that, Bill. these are the sessions that are taking place in our masterclass today. This is the one that we're currently on here, what to expect from your estate agent. Share that. You can see that, I believe. You have that, yeah?
Yeah.
And then the recordings are all down here, Bill. So this is the on-demand ones that you can pick up on that were filmed earlier in the week. And all the ones that have been here today will appear on there next week. A very important area, all these guys are on the panel. You find them on our Meet Our Exhibitors page, and they're all listed here in the Spain section. I have to thank Alan Tickner from 247 Casas, Carsten Ryder from Vincent Properties, David Fuel from Landmark, and Sophie Rodriguez from Casas Manuel. Click through on one of their pages. Here's Sophie with a lovely family that some of you may recognize from a certain TV show. Here's how you can book a meeting with Sophie and her team. Same for the other guys. Some properties that she's got on for offer at the moment. Property carousel. And if you don't need a full meeting but just want to message Sophie or any of the people here today, then just drop them a message there. Thank you, guys. Jose keeps popping up. We keep trying to get rid of him. So
I'm looking for business.
yeah.
Are you gate crashing again, Jose?
We'll start the next session shortly, Jose. If you can just get the bias, yeah.
Get by a two.
Thank you guys for joining, and thank you for that insight. We have a load of questions that I've been unable to answer just because of the time restriction, but thank you to our audience for being here. If you'd like to come on at 3:30 and ask a question, that would be fantastic. So goodbye from me, and goodbye from our panelists.
Bye.
Bye. Good luck.